We are now being joined by someone on whom perhaps the entire business community is focused on. We are being joined by Anil Swarup, the Secretary, Coal Ministry, to give us some more details after that press conference yesterday. Good morning, Mr. Swarup. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Well, just a few more details would help definitely for the bidders. Any details that you can give us on the methodology of finalizing the floor price?
You will have to wait for some more time because it's being discussed and a decision will be taken at an appropriate level. But I can assure you, you will get to know it by 22nd of December, the day on which tenders are to be released. And the bidders will have sufficient time to absorb what we have to say and then bid.
Oh, of course they will, but it would be something like a revenue share. What would be the basis on which the price, the floor price would be? Would it be a price or would it be...
I would only make one statement here. The bottom line is, as I mentioned yesterday, we are working on a formulation where we can hold the tariff so that the tariffs don't increase. There are 2-3 models that are being considered right now, and that's why I don't want to discuss it here. Once it is finalized, I'll be before you and explain to you what the formulation is.
Okay. Mr. Swarup, good morning. What is the mechanism that is being put in place in order to protect the power consumers? If you could just give us more details on that.
You know, as I've been repeatedly saying that we will not allow a pass-through to an extent to allow the existing tariffs to go up. So if there is any additional cost, if the bidder does bid higher than what is the cost, then the bidder will have to absorb that cost in the tariff itself and will not be allowed. That's the formulation that we are working on. How it will pan out, only time will tell.
Okay.
As I said, we are discussing that, and that formulation will come to you once a decision is taken on that, which will certainly be before 22nd of December.
Okay. Are you in talks with the bank? I mean, are you involving the banks or the finance ministry as well in this conversation? Because a lot of power companies are kind of full up in terms of their exposure. Banks have been very wary of lending to power companies. Therefore, is there any involvement of that side in establishing the tariff price, the auction price for coal blocks for power companies?
No, as I said, these guidelines have been thrown open to suggestions from any segment.
Okay.
It's not limited to any segment, and we hope that we'll get suggestions from all the stakeholders, including the banks, and then we'll consider those suggestions. The idea of this is unprecedented, of first announcing draft guidelines, taking suggestions, and then taking a final call. So we hope that we'll be able to get some useful inputs which can be considered by the government, and guidelines, if the suggestions found appropriate, they'll be incorporated in the guidelines.
Okay. Are all the people who are eligible now with you? Because the rules had said that if for Schedule 2 coal blocks, if an expenditure of 80% of the total project has been made, then they become eligible. Are all the eligible candidates now with you? There is no one still waiting to come in?
Waiting in what sense?
No, all the eligible coal blocks are now known to you. You had said that under Schedule 2, the expenditure should be more than 80%, and under Schedule 3, the number should be over 60% investment. So that 32...
No, that is the investment.
Okay.
The idea here is that someone should not take a block and sit on it. He should be in the need of coal. Okay. And he should have clearly demonstrated end-use plant available for them to use this coal. You know, in the past there have been these complaints that people have taken the block, they have not developed it, and they have been sitting on it. Here we want that end user to demonstrate his capability to use the coal as and when he gets the block. And for 42, why we have said 80%? Because we feel that these 42 blocks, mining is already happening. So anyone who's put in 80% would be able to use the coal immediately. For the other 32 blocks where we have an investment limit of 60%, we feel that may take about 2, 3, 4 months time to get the mining going, by which time we would assume that the plant would be ready to consume coal. So the whole idea here is to ensure that the coal that gets out, it gets out quickly and it gets used by the end user.
Okay, my colleague Pragya is also joining in. Go ahead, Pragya.
Mr. Swarup, thank you so much for joining in and good morning to you. So while we understand that the end use will be the same for a lot of the categories, say somebody is selling power within the power space on a merchant basis, he will be able to bid more aggressively compared to someone who's in a fixed tariff or a regulated tariff kind of a place. So, don't you think those guys will be at a disadvantage for a similar coal block? I mean, how is the government looking to address the situation?
You can rest assured that anyone who's bidding for the block will have to give us a commitment that if the cost of the coal is less than what he's factored in his mechanism already, he will have to pass on that benefit to the consumer. That is how we are working on the formulation.
Okay, you've also indicated that the price of the end-use tariff will have to be constrained at a certain point. So if there is a long-term PPA that has already been signed at a certain cost, will the government look to explore and change those conditions of the PPAs? I mean, is that even on the table?
No, we will not.
Okay.
We will not.
Okay.
The concerned bidder will have to take a call that this is the price of the coal that he'll get. Then he has to take a call whether he wants this coal, because if he bids at a higher price, then he has to absorb that cost. He can't pass on that cost to the consumer.
Okay, sir, the other thing that you spoke about yesterday is that, a lot of the people within the, if the coal block has been, if in the past, it's been bid competitively, and a lot of the power plants were bid competitively after 2007, there will be a case or a provisioning to allocate coal blocks to them. Don't you think that will open a whole host of Pandora's box as well, because in the past, a lot of these guys, especially within the IPPs, had bid aggressively, and today, they are stranded for the lack of feasibility on that project. Do you think that, allotting them coal blocks, even if the power project was bid competitively, is even a case on the table? I mean, don't you think, we'll still go back to, where we started from?
No. I see the allotment will happen only to government entities. Allotment will not happen to the private sector. Private sector will have to bid. So the two cases are absolutely different. While bidding, I'm hopeful that, having learned from the past, the bidders will take into account the cost of the coal that will happen and accordingly bid. So if they bid very aggressively, then it may become uneconomic for them. And if they bid low, then they will not be able to, they will have to pass on this benefit to the consumer. So that is the formulation that we are working on, to see that the ultimate consumer of power does not get adversely affected through these auctions, and if there are any benefits, they shall be passed on to the consumer. That's how we are going to work it out.
So the allotment to the public sector enterprises or the government-owned entities will happen out of these 74, which are operational or close to operational coal blocks, or will you explore that entire 160 also, which is out of it?
No. Right now we are looking at these 74 blocks. We are identifying such blocks that would be allotted, as also such blocks that will be put on auction.
Sir, but if the allotment happens out of those 74, then the number of coal blocks, applicable for auctioning will really be limited. Again leading to that aggressive bidding, etc. And the whole cycle starts again.
Is the split clear, sir? How many are allotted? How many are auctioned?
Though we have not frozen on a number, it could be around 50-50. But let me also tell you that we are not merely restricting to these 74 blocks. An exercise is also underway if we can cull out some more blocks out of the remaining 130, which can also be put to auction. The idea here is that the power industry should not be strapped for coal. That's the whole idea. Okay. We started with 74 where there is a total clarity. But the team is looking at the remaining 130 also to see if we can add to these blocks so as to ensure that sufficient coal becomes available to the power industry.
And even that 130 would be allotted and auctioned, public and private?
Yes.
Okay, and that split could also be 50-50?
I don't know. Here some exercise has been done for 74, so I can give you a broad number, though we have not finalized as yet how many will go to public and how many will go for auction. But 130, the exercise is still on.
Okay.
Numbers is not a big deal. We come to a number, and because the rest of the processes are complicated, arriving at a number that to be auctioned is not that complicated.
Your timeline?
It was when we did this exercise of 70.
Yes, sir, go ahead, please.
It was when we did this exercise of 70. When we did this exercise with regard to 74, we did discover that there could be certain segments which may be strapped for coal. So then we asked the team to look into the remaining 130 and see if there are other blocks that are partly ready that could be included in the first round of auction itself.
So your timeline that you gave yesterday up until March 15th is for the 74?
It would be for 74, but if you want to add more blocks, I don't have to do anything additional.
Okay. So there's a very good chance
that these are the blocks and that's it.
There's a very good chance that more than 74 will be auctioned or allotted.
Could be more than 74.
In this financial year itself.
Yes.
Okay,
minimum is 74. We are looking at. Minimum is 74. The number could go up depending on how we see the situation emerging.
Okay, Mr. Swarup, small ambiguity, if you could clarify this for us. You know, when the coal ordinance had come, the one bucket that was spoken about by the government was power and the captive use of power. And you know what is unclear right now is somebody who's producing aluminium, but is an extremely power intensive industry. For them, the cost of power could go up to something like 2 to 2 rupees. But the end use product, which is aluminium, is a free market product. So they would actually end up bidding more aggressively for this bucket of power and captive use of power. Could you clarify?
No, let me clarify very clearly. If the end use is non-power generation, then they shall not be a part of the power segment. They will be part of the aluminium segment or steel segment, which is open auction, and the auctioning and the process will be different. So suppose someone has a captive power plant, he cannot bid as an IPP. So that advantage will not be available to him.
And how are we looking to streamline the coal swapping bits? Because you know, someone who has a power plant based out of Punjab, but the coal block that he's looking at is primarily in the 3 states of the, you know, maybe Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, etc. Then how will this coal swapping work? Could you throw some more color on that? Will it have to be within? Yeah.
It has to be the same company having, let us assume, has 2 power plants. One, and he gets a new mine which is closer to a power plant, so he can swap the coal from one mine to the other, in the sense that he will then not have to take the coal through long distances to service his power plant. So he can use that coal for another power plant of his, which is stationed elsewhere.
Okay. Has the Sinha committee submitted its report on the valuation?
No, not as yet. Not as yet. Okay. They've got all the details from the companies. They are working on the details.
Okay. Any idea as to how that compensation will be calculated? You know, the CAG had spoken of notional loss. What would be the method they will take to calculate compensation?
I think there are experts there in that committee looking into it. Once they furnish the report, we'll come out with it. Okay. See, there are a lot of activities which are taking place parallelly, you know, and they will converge into the tender document well before 22nd December.
What's the interest shown by the state, sir?
Oh, they're pretty interested. We're already getting letters from them. Of course, they will have to apply formally when we release the notice. Okay. They're very, very interested in getting coal blocks.
All right. Just one final word, not exactly on what you spoke yesterday, but what you spoke to us a week ago. You said that you're getting close to, you know, giving us some idea as to how much Coal India's output will increase on a yearly basis. You'll have given us a 5-year target. Any parallel work is being done on that? How much might Coal India increase output in a year?
It is being done, and if you recall the discussion the other day, I said we'll come out with a strategy paper by 15th, within a month's time. Yeah. And we spoke about a week ago, so you have to give me another 3.5 weeks more before I comment.
You have been working faster than your target time, sir, so I thought I would try my luck. Thank you very much, Mr. Swarup, for joining us with all those details. All right, so I think there are a couple of very important takeaways for the power company, for the power and cement and aluminium companies, that the auction allocation split might likely be 50-50. Not a commitment, but that's an indicative split. As well, it may not be just 74. Some more blocks, if they have cleared and if they are ready, could come in under the hammer.
And I think that's a very important.
That will be very positive for those who are bidding. The more the number, the likely less ferocity of the competition. That would also be very positive. And
the captive power versus just power, you know, that was one bucket that they framed. So that clarification also from Mr. Swarup is extremely important. You know, that just you know, dissects that anybody who's producing aluminium, etc., with the cost-heavy industries. So it'll be a very rational bidding. With the, you know, competition will be at its lowest. I think, you know, that's an important, very important clarification.
For the aluminium company.
Absolutely.